is a long-term shift in global or regional climate patterns that specifically is going to rise in global temperatures and significantly is going to attribute to the increase of level of atmospheric carbon dioxide. So what are the causes of climate change? Our daily activities or our rapid urbanization, for example, rapid industrialization, energy use, agricultural practices, deforestation, pollution, transport, livestock, and also consumer practices are all the causes of the climate change. What are the climate indicators? Few climate indicators that we could easily observe are the carbon dioxide levels, global temperature, Arctic sea ice, ocean heat content, sea level, as well as ice sheets. So if we can see from this graph, we could see that the carbon dioxide level are increasing significantly all over the years because human activities have profoundly increased carbon dioxide levels in Earth's atmosphere. Maybe this is not the latest data, but in August 2021, it is observed that the measurement is 416 ppm. As for the global temperature, latest annual average anomaly is 1.02 degrees Celsius, and our Earth's surface are continuing to significantly warm with recent global temperatures being the hottest in the past 2,000 plus years. So the global temperature is quite alarming. As for the Arctic sea ice, we can see the decrease about 13% per decade, and this Arctic sea ice extendedly has declined significantly in all months since 1979 up till now. As for the ocean heat content, in this figure, we can see that the bleached coral is very obvious. This is due to the ocean warming, include the sea level rise, the thermal expansion, coral bleaching, accelerated melting of Earth's major ice sheets, intensified hurricanes, and other ocean health. So obviously, we all know that the greenhouse gases is one of the main contributors to the climate change, which are the carbon dioxide from the fossil fuel and also other activities, methane, nitrous oxide, and also fluorinated gases. So if you can see from this pie chart, carbon dioxide consists of 65%, which is from fossil fuel and industrial processes. And then carbon dioxide from the forestry, 11%, methane, 16% from our food waste in the landfill, nitrous oxide, 6%, and other fluorinated gases is 2%. So what are the effects of the climate change that we can observe? There are so many events or maybe many changes that we could observe from the impact of the climate change. For example, these are the effects of climate change on cities. This is a satellite view. We can see that in Argentina, due to the expansion of the agricultural activities, this region has led to increase in wind and water erosion, salinization, and also loss of biodiversity. And the second figure, it shows in Philippines, because of the city has expanded due to the population, it will bring significant infrastructure as well as environmental problems. And this in Philippines, it is significantly has become one of the most polluted rivers in the world. And in Florida, because of the changes or aging factors, most of the people in the US has been moving from the northern states to southern communities, and there are rapid changes because of this population migration. If we would like to see on the effects of climate change on extreme events, so we can see few changes. For example, in Alaska, we can see that the ice dam gave way and estimated 500 billion liters of water quickly drained out of the lake, and this event is known as glacial lake outburst flood. The second figure is showing the flooding due to the Michigan dam, which is have a failed dam, and it caused a flooding in the downstream area. And the third figures are showing fire in Colorado, which has sparked by lightning, and one person was killed. At least 300 homes were destroyed due to the high temperatures, strong winds, and also that extinguished the blaze. So all these extreme events also caused by climate change. Other impact, for example, on the climate change on ice, we can see all these changes in Hudson Bay. For example, we can see the We lost about a third of the polar bear population since 1980s. In Antarctica, we can see that the fracturing and loss of much of the ice tongue and the ice moving from land to sea that contributes to the sea level rise. And in Beaufort Sea of the Arctic Ocean, we can see that the thicker and also multi-year ice that once covered the region has largely given way to seasonal first-year ice that is thinner, weaker, and more easily broken up by strong winds. So can we reverse the impacts of the climate change? Yes, if we play our role. If we see there are interactions between climate change, people, and also nature. Climate change, either way, is going to have bad impacts on the people, and also is going to have a bad impact on the nature. The function of the nature is going to have positive impact in both ways. Nature will provide contributions to people, and also nature system will help to regulate the climate. We, as the people or the human being, we have a choice whether you would like to contribute to the human activities that will drive the climate change, or you want to be the people that can protect and restore the nature. So it is up to you. So it can be reversed if we play our role as a people or the human being. Okay, the second topic may be global efforts in addressing and mitigating the climate change. The timeline of the climate change have started since 1896, and there are certain particular or significant events have been happening through the pipeline. For example, in 1960, there is one curve developed by American climate scientist, which is Charles David Keeling, begins to track atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration, which is 315 parts per million. And then along the way, we already started Kyoto Protocol, which is on 2005. The Kyoto Protocol goes into effect. All the major industrialized countries sign on, except the US. And in 2007, there's another significant event, which is the fourth IPCC report notes that effects of global warming are occurring again and again. And finally, in 2015, we initiate Paris Agreement, which replacing the Kyoto Protocol and is adopted by nearly 200 countries, including the US. So there's a lot of initiative, findings, so on and so forth on the timeline of the climate change up till now. So when we look at the some of the cities all around the world, there are many cities that have given a commitment on reducing the carbon emissions by 2050. For example, one city is Melbourne. Melbourne have 4 main strategy, which are 100% renewable energy. They are maybe aiming on 100% renewable energy, zero emissions buildings and precincts, zero emissions transport, and also reducing the impact of waste. They have been also practicing, for example, they're installing solar panels, and then they are using, they are switched any major events such as Melbourne Fashion Week to Melbourne Music Week and Melbourne Knowledge Week to be certified carbon neutral. So whoever wants to maybe organize this kind of week, they have to be certified carbon neutral, then only they could organize that particular event. So that are all the efforts that they are trying to do to reduce the carbon emissions. Another city is Netherlands. Netherlands is also would like to reduce 49% by 2030 and also 95% by 2050. And they are choosing 1990 as the baseline year. And in 2019, they adopted National Climate Agreement, as well as they have these diverse groups of people from Dutch society that work towards policies and also to measure the aim to achieve these targets. So they are working towards that. Another city, which is Sydney, also in Australia, they have long-term emissions reduction plan. Australia, all over the place, actually they have this one long-term emissions reduction plan, and the outlines, they would like to drive down the cost of low emissions technology. They would like to deploy these technologies at a certain scale. They would like to help regional industries and communities to seize economic opportunities in new traditional markets, and they would like to work with other countries on the technologies that needed to decarbonize the world's economy. Even in Sydney, they are trying to, especially normally, climate change, most of the carbon emission is caused by energy. So what Sydney is trying to do is that they are providing energy bill relief for households and also businesses through programs to promote energy efficiency. For example, discounts on high efficiency fixed appliances for certain household, or maybe training for small business on how to save energy and also money. So they are providing this initiative to moving towards reduction of carbon emissions. Another example is Barcelona City. Barcelona City by 45%, 5 to 45% by 2030. They have their own Barcelona climate plan 2018 to 2030. They have set 5 main priority and 18 action areas, which are people first, starting at home, transforming communal spaces, climate economy, and also building together. They are trying to work towards togetherness on the commitment towards carbon reduction. Okay, another rapid city, which is London. London also have their short-term, medium-term, and also long-term emissions. They have many initiatives as well as plan and also fund that they would like to offer to the industries, to the people, so that any people that would like to commit to the carbon reduction, they could maybe adopt to one of these plan. For example, 1.5 degrees Celsius compatible plan, Green New Deal Fund, business climate leaders, divestment, and wider climate impacts. Okay, for my country, which is Malaysia, we also have efforts in addressing and mitigating climate change. For example, we have engagement with the international community, which is Kyoto Protocol, as well as Paris Agreement, because Paris Agreement has replaced the Kyoto Protocol. So now we are engaged with the Paris Agreement. So Malaysia also have first national determined contribution. Malaysia intends to reduce its economy-wide carbon intensity against GDP of 45% in 2030 compared to 2005 level. So to increase this or to moving towards that, the 45% of carbon intensity reduction is unconditional. The target is an increase of 10% from the earlier submission, and we are going to coverage or expand or monitor 7 gases of greenhouse gases compared to the 3 main gases. So major sources of greenhouse gases in Malaysia is from energy, obviously 79%, followed by industrial processes and product use, and then agricultural activities as well as waste. We also have our mitigation actions and also key adaptation actions. Mitigation actions, for example, renewable energy, energy efficiency, transportation, recycling activities, biogas recovery from palm oil, as well as forestry. And also key adaptation actions is towards addressing flood. We are facing many flood events in Malaysia, coastal protection, water and food security, as well as public health. So the National Low Carbon Cities Master Plan, we also have this particular plan on how Malaysia would like to cater this issue. So definition, cities are very, I think one of the most important key element in reducing carbon emission. So definition of low carbon city is defined as a city that implements low carbon strategies to meet environmental, social, economic needs of the city, and the city should measure, manage, and also mitigate the greenhouse gases to reduce its contribution towards climate change. So we are emphasizing on 3 elements, which are pursue systematic approach. We have to have strategies and also action plans. We employ area-wide strategies. We have to cover all potential emission sectors within the city boundary, and we set ambitious greenhouse gases reduction target from the baseline, for example, for short-term, medium-term, as well as long-term. So cities, urbanization, and greenhouse gases emissions are linked towards each other. As I mentioned earlier, cities is one of the key elements that is the main engines for dynamic economic growth and the focal points for most population. However, the process of urbanization has contributed significantly for the increase of greenhouse gases emissions. So, for example, we have to focus on identify the human activities in the urban areas. what are the gases that being emitted that will cause the greenhouse gases, the greenhouse gas effect, and what are the average temperature rise global warming in terms of maybe extreme weather, changes in precipitation, so on and so forth. So the major threats and also impacts that we could identify are the drought, flood, sea level rise, diseases spread, economic losses, cyclones, loss of traditional lifestyle, as well as biodiversity losses. So we implemented 3M approach, which are measurement. We should measure the greenhouse gases emission by establishing a baseline year, and also we have to do a periodical monitoring from time to time, and then we compare back to the baseline year. Number 2 is on the management. So we have to manage on the low carbon. We know that we have maybe emitted certain greenhouse gases. So we have to know what kind of policy, planning, targets, strategy that we should implement or we should come up with to manage the greenhouse gases. And then we have to come up with mitigation measures, because the mitigation of the greenhouse gases emissions through design and implementation of programs and also projects are very important. Okay, there are actually 7 key challenges were recognized as barriers to low carbon pathway in most Malaysian cities. I think maybe the same problem will occur at different countries and also different cities. So one of the challenges are the policies and also direction. Even in Malaysia, we do not have a very specific policies and also direction. We have a very huge gap in transition from top to bottom. There's no specific reference or low agenda carbon, so on and so forth. Number 2 is on the implementation and also execution. Also inconsistent of the implementation, there's no dedicated unit or entity at all levels. So we do not know who should take the responsibility to do this and to do that. Number 3 is on the source of funding and financing. I think most of the countries are maybe facing the same thing. We have very insufficient and also still lacking in terms of fund to cater all these carbon reduction issues. And number 4, on the low carbon development in urban planning, we have a very poor integration actually between the low carbon reduction strategies and also existing development document, and also we are conflicting and competing on the priorities. Number 5, on the community participation. That's why this kind of program, the awareness are very important, because it is very poor in public appreciation and also understanding on the, and also lacking on the opportunities to participate because we do not understand. And number 6, on the capacity, capability and readiness. If we do not aware, we do not have the knowledge, we do not understand, we are actually not a capable people. We are lacking of skills and also understanding, and also lack on the subject matter. So we do not know how to contribute to reduce on the carbon emission. And last but not least, on data of GHG inventory. The data of the greenhouse gases are very important. We have to have a baseline year, we have to have a periodical monitoring, and then we have to have comparison between the baseline year and the following year, so that we know whether we are reducing or whether we are increasing the carbon gas emission. So we are very weak and poor in the availability of the access, lacking of proper data, and we do not have consistent methodology to do that. Okay, so Malaysia realized that we have these all 7 challenges, and we are trying to come up with action plans, which we have like three key drivers, 3 key enablers, and we have 9 key directions and 24 key actions. So we, after we have all the strategies and also action plan, firstly Malaysia will identify or select 33 local cities, and then they group it into 3 groups, group 1, group 2, group 3. But the main selection of the cities, the city must not exceeding 300,000 population. So we have certain specific plan for all these 3 group cities that the population is not exceeding 300,000 people. But for cities which is smaller, but they are keen to implementing mitigation measures to reduce greenhouse gases emissions, but they are not selected because the population is less than 300,000. They also have like general guidelines on the planning, the capacity building, implementation, as well as monitoring. So they can plan on their own, but they do not being selected as in the plan of the Malaysia Plan in 12, 13, so on and so forth. So for every group, they have this certain target by certain year so that they could achieve, for example, 33% of greenhouse gases emissions by certain year. So they already have planned for this group one, by this certain year, they must achieve this 33% reduction, so on and so forth. So we just follow the plan accordingly, according to 17, 18, 12 Malaysian plan, and with that according year. So Malaysia cities commitment, how do we commit? Certain cities are quite advanced, they are starting to commit, but some of the cities are still trying to improve, they are trying to find ways on how to commit. Okay. Under the Ministry of Environment and also Water and Environment, we have this Malaysian Green Technology Corporation. They are the organization which is responsible to conduct the Low Carbon Cities 2030 Challenge. So they open up to all the cities, to all the local authority, universities, industries, so on and so forth, to register and also take up this challenge to join in order to help Malaysian government to achieve 45% reduction of carbon emission by the year 2030. Because as I mentioned earlier, Malaysia already committed to the Paris Agreement. So this Malaysia commitment to reduce greenhouse gases by 45% by 2030, and we would like to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees by 2030. If Malaysia, for example, university, cities, local authorities, industries do not commit to this low carbon cities challenge, how do we assist Malaysia to achieve this target? So we promoting and also encourage the cities, the local authorities to take part. So on the SACC 2030 Challenge Motivation, there are 4 key benefits, obviously: cleaner air, cooler city, healthier environment, and then cheaper operating costs. There are a few main categories, which is focusing on the energy, mobility, waste, water, as well as sequestration area. So on these low carbon cities, they have this particular framework. This framework is like guidelines on the maybe cities, university, local authorities. If they would like to take part on this challenge, they have to refer to this framework. So the framework has 4 key elements, which are urban environment, urban infrastructure, building, and also urban transportation. So the 5 pillars or main elements are energy, mobility, water, waste, as well as greenery. So we have, the first thing, we have to choose a baseline year, and then we have to do the monitoring, and then we choose another year to make a comparison, and we have to do a continuous emission reduction every year, and then we have to monitor every single year. So they are going to provide provisional certificate and also diamond recognition according to the reduction of the carbon emissions according to the category. So one of the city in Malaysia, which is Iskandar Malaysia in Johor Bahru, they have many actions and also mitigation methods. For example, they apply integrated green transportation, green industry. They have integrated public transportation, for example, public transport system improvement, introduce rail-based and water-based public transport, efficient, seamless intermodal transfer facilities. So all the technologies or all the green initiatives are being included in this Iskandar Malaysia. They also adopt low carbon urban governance, green building and also construction. They have green energy system and renewable energy. They're harnessing solar energy, utilization of energy from waste, hydrogen utilization. So any green initiatives that they think they could adopt and adapt, they will park it under this Iskandar Malaysia. They also practice low carbon lifestyle. They have awareness through education, smart working style, promote energy efficiency, promote smart travel choices, so on and so forth. They also have community engagement and consensus building, walkable, safe and livable city design, smart urban growth, green and blue infrastructure and also rural resources, sustainable waste management and clean air environment, as well as, this is the same thing as previously. So university commitment, I would like to take my university as an example, which is University Tun Hussein Malaysia. We also register for the Low Carbon Cities Challenge because we would like to play our responsibility to assist the Malaysian government to at least achieve reduction of 45% by the year 2030. So what we should do is that we are focusing on the energy, water, waste, mobility, as well as greenery. And then what we have to do is that we have to come up with all the data. For example, this is for the electricity consumption. We have choose the baseline year, which is 2019. We have to provide all the electricity consumption from January to December for that particular baseline year, and then we compare it with that following year or the project year. So we can choose 2020, 2021, 2022, so on and so forth. But we have to have all these, prepare all these electrical bills, so on and so forth, as a attachment that this is the bills that are being consumed by UTHM. This is annual water consumption, the same thing. We should provide the water bills from January to December from 2009 and also 2020. In terms of waste, we have to measure how many waste we produce in terms of municipal and also landscape waste. And if we practice recycling, we also could record all the waste avoided from going to landfills. So all this will have their own points in order for us to get the carbon reduction percent and also to get the diamond recognition. In terms of mobility, we have to do a traffic count at UTHM, and then we are going to measure the length of the road or the length of the distance of that particular road, how many motorcycle, car, MPVs, bus, light truck, heavy truck that will go around campus in one day, so that we know how many emissions, or we could estimate how many emissions could be produced from these mobility activities or transportation activities inside UTHM. So moving towards carbon reduction, we have so many green initiatives in the campus. For example, we in terms of greenery, we always have tree planting program activities. We also have Gazette, the Tiny Forest Project in UTHM, and we have a very close relationship with the Forest Department. In terms of energy, the current implementation, we have installed 25 solar panels. We have installed solar panels at 25 buildings in UTHM, and we also implement natural lighting design at UTHM building, and we also have like many energy efficiency equipment, facilities, lighting sensors, so on and so forth, to reduce the carbon emission from energy sources. In terms of waste, we have a cage for separation at source. We have our own recycling center, and we have our own composting food waste center. So that any recycle waste, we could send it to the recycle center. Any food waste that we have from the cafeteria, from the faculties, from the college, we could send it to the composting food waste center. So there's a lot of activities, recycling day. We also encourage people by giving reward and also pop-up poster of recycler of the month, composter of the month, so on and so forth, so that every staff and also students are encouraged to play their part and role at UTHM. So in terms of mobility, we have a very good free shuttle bus. We also have electrical bus. We start maybe one or two electric vehicle at UTHM. We also provide green U bicycle for the students to ride around the campus in the evening. Okay, for the performance criteria for low carbon cities, as I mentioned earlier, there are a framework. And then this framework have four main elements, which are the urban environment, urban transportation, urban infrastructure, and also building. They have 15 performance criteria and also 41 sub-criteria. So if we are registered for the Low Carbon Cities Challenge, we have to refer to this guideline, but we do not have to maybe fulfill every single performance criteria. Maybe we can choose for the first, I'm not sure, for the first maybe short term, we choose only, instead of 15, we choose only 5, and then we focus. As long as we are contributing in reducing the carbon emission, is okay. At least we are moving towards that, and we have our own initiative, whether it is small or big, it doesn't matter. So even though they have 15 performance criteria, 41 sub criteria, you do not have to do all of that, but you have, maybe you can focus only few, but do it in a very commitment way so that you could reduce the carbon emission. So when we join the Low Carbon Cities Challenge, UTHM have to come up with every strategies and also action. So they have performance criteria. You must have a short term, medium term, and also long term, and you have to have a strategies, as well as every single strategist must have their own action plan, when it's going to start and when it's going to be completed, and who is responsibility at the university to take up the task. So we have to have that kind of plan. So it doesn't matter whether you are industries, university, local authorities, or university. If you join this Low Carbon Cities Challenge by the Malaysian Green Tech, you have to do this exercise. I think sometimes maybe for some industries or maybe some organizations, they think that it is quite hassle to do all these strategies and action plan. But when you are going through this exercise, you have come up with your own strategies and also action plan. It is actually clear to you what you could do in terms of, for example, waste, water, energy, greenery, so on and so forth. And you just have to follow the strategies and also action plan accordingly throughout the year. So I think it's a good exercise. Even though it is hassle, it keeps you grounded and it keeps you in line with the for example, our government initiative, which is to reduce 45% in terms by the year 2030. So we have all the strategies and action plan for the urban environment, urban transport, urban infrastructure, and sometimes you can see that I put not applicable. That is what I mean. We do not have to tackle every single thing or every single criteria, but maybe you can focus on certain criteria that you think that you could commit to it. Urban infrastructure, buildings, so on and so forth. So as an individual, we as an individual, if we could not commit as organization, we could commit as individual. So for example, there's a lot of sustainable application that you could download in your phone right now. For example, Joe Bug application, Orioko application, Think Dirty application, How Good application. These are all applications that are going to help you to maybe guide you to have a very sustainable lifestyle so that you can know how much how green is your lifestyle, and is your lifestyle is going to contribute much to the carbon emission, or is your lifestyle is good enough in reducing the carbon emissions in your daily life, so that you can estimate whether your lifestyle is green, is good, or it is bad. If it is bad, you can try to change slowly, and hopefully it will become a habit one day. So the carbon emissions are going to be differ according to country. For example, Japan have their own carbon emissions conversion, which is carbon dioxide equivalent per ton. Malaysia have their own. Malaysia mostly mimicking other countries, for example, from United Kingdom or other countries, because we do not have our own calculation to convert the activities that we do to the carbon emission. So United Kingdom have their own calculation. Australia have their own conversion emission factors. We also have carbon calculator website. You can just search online. This is also good. When, for example, you try to recycle 10 plastic bottles, you can just key in 10 plastic bottles is equal to how much carbon dioxide equivalent emission. So you know that by recycling that, you are avoiding this amount of carbon emission towards the environment, which is good, right? So the carbon calculator website can calculate recycling on the transportation, so on and so forth. So we have so many according to category. So if you like to start your green lifestyle, which is going to not contributing to the carbon emissions, so you can start now by downloading all the sustainable apps. Okay, I would like to share a little bit on my research on more towards solid waste management and also recycling. Even though on the greenhouse gases emissions, waste seems to be maybe one of the lowest carbon emission compared to other activities, for example, energy and so on. But it doesn't matter how small these activities contributing to the carbon emission, but we have to tackle it. So obviously, we all know that if we dispose waste to the landfill, we are going to produce methane from the organic waste, especially food waste. In Malaysia, we are producing like maybe 50 to 60% food waste to landfill compared to other types of waste. So it is going to contribute to methane production, and methane has 21 times warming potential compared to carbon dioxide. Okay, and 91% of methane emissions in Malaysia were generated from landfill. This is what happening in Malaysia. So the emissions from, for example, incinerator, they have nitrous oxide, which is 310 times worse than carbon dioxide, and the incinerator is going to last over 100 years. These all the gases that from burning activities are going to last over 100 years in the atmosphere. So every stage, every activities that we do, especially on waste, for example, recycling, composting, sending to landfills, they have their own path and also own contribution in terms of the carbon dioxide. So you can choose which method or which disposal method that you would like to commit to so that you could contribute to the reduction of the carbon emission. Obviously, by recycling, you're going to save energy, you're going to save carbon emissions. Every single of recycling activities are going to contribute to the decreasing of the carbon emissions. Okay, as well as composting. We could recycle other recyclable items. Why not we also recycle food waste? Okay, because food waste, by doing composting, you're going to save all the food waste to go to the landfill, and you are going to eliminate all the methane emission from the landfill, which is very, very good, especially for Malaysia. Okay, as for my research, I normally recycle waste into building materials. During my PhD, I recycle cigarette butts into building materials. Because if we talk about recycling in our daily life, maybe we could recycle plastic, paper, bottles, so on and so forth. But in research, maybe we can mold our research methodology. We try to find ways that could be manipulated or could be used or utilized to be recycled into building materials, and we could save on the natural resources, and at the same time we also could contribute to the reduction of gas emission or carbon emission. I also recycle mosaic sludge from the industry of tiles into fight clay brick, palm oil meal for agricultural waste, and then electroplating sludge, saffron fly ash and also bottom ash from the incineration process into self-compaction concrete, and also petroleum sludge, pump oil fuel ash, and also quarry dust into by using SS method into concrete as well. Another research area that I normally preach to community and also give training is on the composting, which is we should educate and also give awareness, especially to school children, so that they aware that food waste could also be recycled into compost, and compost could be an organic fertilizer that which is good for our plants. So these are all community programs, recycling demonstration, composting. You show them how to do the techniques, so on and so forth. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you for listening, and these are my emails. If you are interested on any of the topics, you can just email me, and I'm more than happy to do any collaboration.
Thank you,
Okay, I
Dr.
think.
Aslina. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
your very valuable, detailed, and very nice lecture today. And with this beautiful lecture, I'll now conclude this session. And tomorrow, all the participants will join at the same time, and that is 1:30 p.m. GMT. Thank you. Have a nice day. Have good night. Bye.
Okay, thank you.